Hi everyone, welcome to the session. In today's session, let me look at how to deal with work in progress plus degree of completion and valuing inventory at FIFO method. So what is FIFO method? FIFO means first in, first out method. Under FIFO valuation, what we need to identify here is the work started and completed units. Under FIFO valuation, what we need to identify here is the work started and completed units. Okay. Then what we need to do is we need to divide this into two parts. First one is the opening inventory and the remaining units completed in the period. So these are the two components that we need to identify. So basically, this is like you calculate the cost of goods sold. It's simply like calculating cost of goods sold. How do you calculate cost of goods sold? You take the opening inventory, you add the purchases, okay? Then you deduct the closing inventory, okay? So thereby you can identify the COGS. So something like that, similar calculation where you identify the work started and completed units and divide this into opening inventory and completed in that particular period. Okay, so now let's move on to a question. Let's move on to a question. The following information relates to process 3. The following information relates to process 3 of a 3-stage production process for the month of January, let's say 2004. This, as per this question, it should be 2004. You are given the opening inventory, 300 units, complete has to material from process 2, 100% completed in process 2. The cost was 44,000. Added material 90% completed, 11,500. Labor 80% completed, and the cost is 5,400. Production overhead 80% completed, and the cost was 8,100. The total opening stock brought forward cost is 69,000. In January 2004, a further 1,800 units were transferred from process 2. Okay, the units introduced to the process 3 is 1,800. At a valuation of 270,000, added materials amounted to 66,000 and direct labor cost is 32,200. Production overhead is absorbed at the rate of 150% of direct labor cost. So which means it is absorbed 150% of the labor cost, which is 32,700. So when you calculate the overhead cost, so what you need to do is you need to take 32,700 times 150%. Okay, so that will be the overhead cost. Then closing inventory 31st January 2004 amounted to 450 units. Complete has to process 2 material 100%, added material 60%, and labor and overhead 50%. Prepare process 3 account for January 2004 using FIFO valuation principles. Okay, so in this question, so first and foremost, what we have to do, so we need to calculate work started and completed units in the period. Okay, first of all, we need to identify work started and completed in the period. This is very important. Okay. So first of all, we'll take the opening inventory, 300 units. Okay. So this is the opening inventory, 300 units. Then we have input to the process is 1,800. So input 1,800. So total will be 2,100. Then we have to deduct the closing inventory. Closing inventory value is 450. So once you deduct this, you will have completed units 1,650. Work started and completed in the period is 1,650. Okay. Now, since we are valuing at FIFO method, okay, so we need to segregate this particular item into opening inventory, and the rest of the units completed in the period. Rest of the units completed in the period. Okay. So opening inventory we know. Okay. So that is 300. Then what should be the rest of the units completed in the period? So 1,650 minus 300. So that will be 1,350. Okay. So the work started and completed units, work started and completed units were 1,650, of which 300 as per FIFO, 300 units were completed first, then the remaining units 1,350. Okay, so this is the basic calculation that you need to prepare in any work in progress calculation if you are asked to calculate based on the FIFO method. Okay, now let's move on to the calculation part of it. What are the basic steps? Okay, so you should know what are the basic steps necessary to prepare the process account. First one is you need to identify statement of equivalent units. Okay, so you need to identify first of all equivalent units. Then you need to calculate cost per equivalent units. Cost per equivalent units. Okay, then you need to prepare the statement of evaluation. So this we have discussed in detail, statement of evaluation. So if you have any doubts, what you can do is you can go to my previous videos. Finally, we need to prepare the process account. So these are the 4 steps that you need to follow. Okay, so now let's move on to the calculation part of it. Now let's prepare the statement of equivalent units first. As we are given 4 cost categories. Now you have 4 types of cost categories, which is material from process 2, added material, labor, and production overhead. So we'll take 4 columns to calculate the equivalent units. Okay, we have material from process 2, added material, labor, and overhead cost. Okay, now first of all, we'll take the opening inventory, then we'll take the fully completed units. We'll take the fully completed units during process 3, fully completed units during process 3, then the closing inventory. Then we had to take the closing inventory. Okay, so as you can see, we calculated our opening inventory was 300. How much completed in the period, which is 1,350. Okay, so 1,350. Then closing inventory we took 450. So thereby the total units will be 2,100. Now what we have to do is we need to take under each category, under each line, the degree of completion under each category. Then you can calculate the equivalent units. Now, with regard to the opening inventory, okay, the degree of completion is given from previous process. For example, material from process 2, 100% complete. So since the material from process 2 is complete 100% from process 2, can we consider 100% completion in process 3 as well? No, you can't do that. Okay, so what you need to do is, since this material from process 2 is complete 100%, in process 3 you can't take any percentages. Okay, so we need to identify what are the remaining percentages to be completed. Okay, so as far as material from process 2 is concerned, there is nothing to be completed in process 3. Added material, out of 90% completion, 10% to be completed in process 3. Labor, 80% already completed, so therefore 20% to be completed in process 3. And also the production overhead, 80% completed, so therefore 20% to be completed in process 3. So therefore, we'll take the material to be degree of completion 0%. Okay, and added material, since it was 90%, now 10% to be completed in process 3. Okay, so therefore the equivalent units will be 10% on 300, which will be 30 to be completed. Labor, since 80% completed, we need to take 20%. So therefore equivalent units will be 20 times 300. And also the overhead, 20% to be completed. So therefore equivalent units will be 60 units. As far as fully completed unit, 1,350. So it is completed. Okay, so as these 1,350 units are fully completed, as to all the categories, we need to take 100% completion. So material from process 2, which is 100% completed, added material also 100% completed, labor and overheads. So therefore the equivalent units will be 1,350. Now the closing inventory. The closing inventory, since it was 90%, 100% completed, Now the closing inventory is complete in the process. You are given the percentage completion. Okay. Process 2 material 100% complete, and as far as added materials are concerned, 60% complete. So therefore, the completion percentage we have to take it here in the process 2, and labor and overhead, which is 50% and 50%. Okay, so thereby we can identify the equivalent units. Okay, so these are the equivalent units under each category. Now the second step is to calculate the average cost per equivalent units. Okay, so first of all, we'll take the respective cost under each category. Material, we are given 270,000. Okay, so this is 270,000. Then we have added material. How much? Added material amounted to 66,000. 66,000. Then the labor is given as 32,700. 32,700. And overhead cost is absorbed at the rate of 150 on direct labor cost. Okay, so as I told you earlier, 32,700 you need to absorb at the rate of 150%. So that will be 49,050. Okay, now let's take the equivalent units under each category. Material process 2, 1,800. Then we'll take added material 1,650, and labor 1,635, and overhead also 1,635. So how do you calculate cost per equivalent units? Simply you divide 270,000 by equivalent units, which is 150. Okay, and here 66,000 divided by 1,650, 40. 32,700 divided by 1,635, which is 20 per unit. 49,050 divided by 1,635, 30 per unit. Okay. Then the third step. Third step is to identify the calculation of statement of evaluation, or the calculation of the total cost. Now, first of all, what we have to do is, since you are given the opening inventory, okay, so opening inventory you are given the brought forward cost from process 2. Okay, these 300 units were transferred from process 2 with regard to this opening units of 300. Therefore, we have an opening balance of 69,000. Okay, material from process 2, 44,000, added material 11,500, labor 5,400, and 8,100 production overhead costs are already being incurred as far as these percentages are concerned. Okay, so therefore, let's take the opening brought forward balances. So here 44,000, added material, the cost is 11,500. Labor, we have 5,400, the opening balance. Overhead cost is 8,100. So therefore, our total opening brought forward balance is 69,000. Okay. Now, with regard to the opening inventory, with regard to material from process 2, okay, since 100% completed, okay, we didn't have any equivalent units. As you can see from the table, we don't have any equivalent units because it is 100% complete. Okay, so the units rate is 150 with regard to material process 2 per unit cost is 150. Since there is no units, there is no cost. Okay, and with regard to added material, you completed 10%, so therefore 30 units with regard to added material, then labor and overhead 60 units. Okay, so let's take those equivalent units first. 30 and here 60 and 60 overhead cost. Okay, now, so what is the cost per equivalent units for added material, which is 40. So therefore, we can straight away take the 40. So therefore, your cost will be 1,200. With regard to labor, we have 20 per unit. So therefore, this has to be valued at 20. So that will be 1,200. And finally, overhead cost has to be valued at 30 per unit. So that will be 1,800 will be the cost. Okay, the total cost allocation will be 4,200. Then added the fully completed units in 2004, 1,350. As far as material from process 2 is concerned, which is 100% completed, so they are for 1,350. So all these categories, since it's fully completed, we have to take 1,350. So 1,350 as far as material is concerned. From process 2, the cost per unit is 150. And here 1,350 times 40. And since it is fully completed, 1,350, the cost per unit for labor is 20. Overhead cost also 1,350, the cost is 30. So therefore, the total cost will be 324. And finally, the opening inventory, which is 450. The equivalent units will be how much? Yes, here 450, because it is 100% complete as far as material process 2 is concerned. Then here 270, 225 and 225 respectively. So we'll take 270, 225 and 225. Now we'll take the cost. So 150, same cost, 40, 20 and 30. So thereby the total cost for closing inventory will be 89,550. Okay, the total is 486,750. So this we can double check with the cost incurred in the process 2. The total will be, if you take the total of these, okay, 270, 66,000, 32,700, 49,050, 417,750, plus the opening cost, which was already given for the opening inventory, which is 69,000, So once you add that, once you add 69,000, so you should get how much? This plus 69,000 will be 486,750. This total cost is allocated amongst, okay, fully completed units and the opening inventory and the closing inventory. The cost is being allocated here. Okay. Now finally, we'll prepare the process account. We'll take the opening inventory. We had 300 units. Then input from process to 1,800. So let's take the relevant cost. Here, opening inventory, we had opening balance of 69,000. This is 69,000. Okay, so we'll take 69,000. Then the input from process to material, how much? 270,000, which was 270,000. Then we had added materials. We had how much? 66,000, which is 66,000. Added material 66,000. Then we had labor 32,700, and overheads 49,050. The total cost is 486,750. Now this one we need to distribute like finished goods from process 3 and this is process 3. Then we have closing inventory. As you know, the closing inventory is 450, and completed units, fully completed units 1,650. So here we calculated fully completed units, which is 1,650. Work started and completed in the period was 1,650. Okay, so this will be transferred to the finished goods. Okay, 1,650. Okay, so what is the cost for 1,650 and the closing inventory? So that we have already calculated. So inventory, closing inventory, the cost was 89,550, which is 89,550. And the remaining the remaining cost will be allocated to the finished goods, which is 69,000 completed. The cost for finished goods, which is 1,650, consists of opening inventory brought forward balance and the remaining cost incurred in the process 3 for the opening inventory. So those will be completed first. Then fully completed 1,350 in the process 3. So the total will be 397,200. So that will be the finished goods value. Okay, so once you take this total, this will be 486,750, 486,750. Okay, so this will be 2,100. Okay, so this will be the final answer for this particular question.